Freedomizers. Welcome to Zone 13, the best afternoon news show on the web. We're broadcasting live from the studios of freedomizerradio.com. Today's Thursday, April 16th, 2015, and it's 3 p.m. on the East Coast, noon Pacific. I'm Joanne Moretti, and I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Scott Ferrarello, and we appreciate you tuning in. Thank you very much. Our chat rooms, both at Blog Talk Radio and right here at freedomizerradio.com, are open for you. At our home site, you can both chat and listen, so head on over there. Our colleagues, Lynn, Famous Anna, and AstroTurf, are in the chats putting the links to our sources in there, so you have them for your own records as a courtesy, and thank you very much, ladies. They're great journalists, researchers, and analysts. You might even run into several more of our colleagues and correspondents in the chats, too, so please say hi to each other. As I mentioned last week, we would know more about the operation being conducted in the United States called Jade Helm. We spent a lot of time compiling facts and documents to present the story to you this week, and wait until you hear what we found. We also have a lot of other news and information to bring you as well. But before we begin the show, I'd like to do a short disclaimer, and that's just to let anyone who may be interested know that anything said on this show is solely my responsibility and not that of our valued sponsors, advertisers, or the Freedomizer Radio Network. The disclaimer goes like this. The comments made by hosts, guests, callers, or chat commentators of Zone 13 do not necessarily reflect the views, ideology, beliefs, opinion, or anything else of Freedomizer Radio Network, their sponsors, or advertisers, whether it be past, present, and even future broadcasts. Plus, our show is probably rated about PG-13, so, you know your kids, you know their education level. We don't swear or anything like that, but, some of the stuff we talk about is a little over their heads. Anyhow, now that that's out of the way, let me bring Scott in and give him a proper welcome, and then we'll begin the show. Hey, Scott.
Hey, how you doing?
Oh, very good, very, very good. Anything you want to bring up before we start the show?
Nah, go ahead.
All right, well, before we get into the Jade Helm stuff, I want to tell you about that gyrocopter that landed on the Capitol lawn yesterday. That was the biggest...
Mailman?
Oh, yeah, the mailman. Publicity stunt. Not is he just a mailman, but he's an activist, he's a leftist, he's in all kinds of groups and stuff against Citizens United, the Supreme Court decision on campaign financing. Not only is it, a publicity stunt, but the Secret Service and the media all knew about it. He even did an interview with the Tampa Bay Times. He told them he wasn't suicidal. He said he wasn't going to commit suicide or anything. He's not going to fly into any monuments. He had a whole bunch of petition signatures that he wanted to deliver. He had told the media he was doing it. He told his friends he was doing it. He had written the White House. He had written the State Department. He had written the Secret Service. So this was a major publicity stunt. I do not recommend that anybody who's not as connected as this dude try it.
Yeah, they'll kill you.
Oh, yes, they'll kill you. This man had permission to be there. This would highlight Citizens United, and, of course, it's campaign season, so the Secret Service had visited him a few times over this. They allowed this to happen. So this was a completely orchestrated event, so don't get all excited. But also, I want to let you know, if you're thinking of hopping on a helicopter with on a bicycle with a propeller on top, don't do it. You will be shot down. You don't have the media. You don't have the permission of the Secret Service. This guy flew by the Washington Monument, the White House, and landed on the Capitol. Yeah, that doesn't happen. So that was either a major security breach or it was supposed to happen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so don't anybody get excited and don't try it. All right, let's talk about Jade Helm. Now, last week I didn't really know a whole bunch of information on it. I always fight with my co-host because, he says, yeah, it's nefarious, and yeah, they got plans, and, I'm saying, nah, you don't want to, think like that, and, we got to have some trust. Well, after doing this investigation, I think my co-host is right. Scott, I owe you an apology. This has been going on since 1961, actually. I am looking at a document that was put out by the Department of State, And it says the United States Program for General and Complete Disarmament in a Peaceful World. It is written by the State Department, and it goes through all the steps to disarm people, the country, the United States. They can disarm the rest of the world. That's easy. We're the most difficult because I guess we're brats. However, the government principles set forth are to guide the negotiation of states in their work. And they make it clear that a state relinquish their arms. The United Nations must be progressively strengthened in order to improve its capacity to assure international security and the peaceful settlement of disputes. So, like I said, they've already disarmed most of the rest of the world. It's you they want to disarm so that they can have a peaceful world. The United Nations considers you a threat, not the jihadis running around, not the people like FARC or, any of these communist groups. Those aren't the problem. The problem is you and your guns. And this is from the State Department, like I said, 1961, and it's in conjunction with the United Nations, obviously. Now, we knew that they wanted to strengthen the United Nations. Well, they are. And they send them more and more money every year, and they give them more and more power. As a matter of fact, the Iranian deal highlighted how the UN doesn't want us to have as much authority, voting rights, or veto power. And Obama is saying, yeah, well, that's cool with him, right? All right, so let's talk about Jade Helm here. Jade is for Joint Assistant for Deployment and Execution. That's what the acronym JAD is for. Helm is for Homeland Eradication of Local Militants. That's what Helm stands for. Jade Helm's been ongoing for a while. First came the infiltration to key communities and local militias and organizations to assess the risk. Second came the report and later deployment of the needed military equipment to the local sheriffs and police departments. Getting it? We've been talking about how these local communities are getting MRAPs and they're getting all kinds of equipment and they're getting riot gear and I mean, over here, Micah Puzioni, in June 14, he wrote, during the Obama administration, according to Pentagon data, police departments have received tens of thousands of machine guns, nearly 200,000 ammunition magazines, thousands of pieces of camouflage and night vision equipment, and hundreds of silencers, armored cars, and aircraft. The equipment has been added to the armories of police departments that already look and act like military units. Police SWAT teams are now deployed tens of thousands of times a year. Increasingly, for routine jobs, masked, heavily armed police officers in Louisiana, for one place, raided a nightclub in 2006 as part of a liquor inspection. In Florida in 2010, officers in SWAT gear and with guns drawn carried out raids on a barber shop that mostly led only to charges of barbering without a license. So when the military's mine-resistant trucks began arriving in large numbers last year, Nina and places like it, that's a little town, were plunged into the middle of a debate over whether the post-9/11 era had obscured the lines between soldier and police officer. As the nation's wars abroad wound down, many of the military surplus tools of combat ended up in the hands of state. That was intentional, ladies and gentlemen. That plan that I just read to you, describing Jade Helm and what it's about, that was from, let me tell you the date on here, 1992. All right, 1992. So in 92, they put this Jade Helm plan into action. Now, that means that they had to come up with...
Bush, I'm sure.
Well, that's when it went into action. It's actually been going on since 1961. But, we tell people all the time Obama couldn't have gotten here and done what he did without all the markers being put ready for him to just pick up the mantle and run with
Ducks in a row.
Well, that's what's going on here. This has been going on for a long time. The disarmament plan, the plan to, I don't know if they're going to take over the United States. They're telling us this is for your security.
Oh, they are.
Yeah,
they are.
But then, on the other hand, the rest of that, article. Let me find here what my notes were because I did highlight them. It says
they always have a
listen to
plan B or C, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, if they can't get you to register them all and voluntarily get on it in a database or whatever, then they just, you know, they try to shame you into it. If that doesn't work, then they run all these false flags and use children to try to guilt you into it. And if that doesn't work, they try to ban some of them and ban ammunition. And then if that doesn't work, they send in the Gestapo to kill you and take them.
Yeah, well, you know, I used to fight with you about this until I read this piece of this Jade Helm situation. All right, in South Carolina, there's a Richland County sheriff. Let's see here. He says, you have a lot of people who are coming out of the military that have the ability and knowledge to build IEDs and to defeat law enforcement techniques. Sergeant Dan Downing of the Morgan County Sheriff's Department told the local Fox affiliate, referring to an improvised explosive device or a homemade bomb. Sergeant Downing didn't return a message seeking comments on that from us. But that's the enemy. Returning military and militias and patriots. He said it right here out of his own mouth. You have a lot of people who are coming out of the military. Guys, our veterans are the enemy. But in the meantime, they have our military joining up with local police departments, arming them, training them. That's what this Jade Helm is all about. They're building a database. They're going to take all the information that they learn, and they're building apps with it. That's also what the first document says. They're building apps with it. So say something works in Tampa, but it doesn't work in California. They're going to be able to cross-reference and overlap it and figure out what worked, what time, how many people they needed. They have people now that have, I mean, they look for so many crisis actors that actually they have started a business industry. Now there's organizations that, you know, hire out their actors for these crisis situations. In New Mexico, there's an ad out right now, Phoenix, there's an ad out right now on Craigslist looking for crisis actors for Phoenix.
At $12 an hour. $12 an hour to be used as a guinea pig, you know. They can use sound weapons on you. They can use, blinding guns on you, whatever, put you in the extreme heat, extreme cold. $12 an hour.
Right. You know, and I don't think these people know that what they're doing is helping the administration commit treason.
They don't
care.
But
when that sheriff himself, who was receiving all this equipment, said you have people who are coming out of the military, that's the enemy, guys. And now, you look at this Jade Helm. It's along the Sun Belt. It goes from Florida out to California, across to Utah and Colorado, and back down. That includes New Mexico, Arizona, California, Florida. They skipped over Louisiana. I don't know why that is. Also, the document that they used was to have people calm down about posse comitatus, because in the Jade Helm document for this 2015 operation, they are asking permission from the local municipalities. Well, of course they're going to get permission. They're being trained how to use all that equipment. So that's a way around.
There's a lot of ways around posse comitatus. They can hire, Blackwater-type mercenaries now. They militarize the police. They're not, so they're not technically military. Just like they did during Waco, Texas. They couldn't send they couldn't send our military in there, so they just went and had the military train them.
Right. Yeah, well, the military can't do the operation, but they can join up with local, state, and police departments. They're also using the National Guard to ask the permission, because the National Guard used to be controlled by the governor of the states. But if you remember, they were incorporated into the military. So this is actually a military operation in conjunction with local police departments. They're calling it a drill. but it's definitely a training program. They are training people. They also have zones set out. That's where our show name came from, Zone 13. Zone 13 is the FEMA number given to the whole United States, but they break that into several zones. I'm down here in Florida, so I laughed when Scott said, no, you're going to Gitmo. And I said, no, I'm not going to Gitmo. I'm not going to play their little Jade Helm games. No way. Sure enough. They're getting rid of all those inmates, but they're not replacing them with terrorists. They're going to replace them with domestic terrorists. We're not giving up that land in Cuba.
No,
we're not giving it back to Cuba at all. Oh, no, not at all.
They just take a 90-minute or a 90-mile flight from America to Cuba, and it's like a giant version of Alcatraz.
Yeah.
And you escape the FEMA camp. What are you going to do, swim to Florida?
90 miles, you could do a puddle jumper and be there in 40 minutes from Key West on one of those little pterodactyl planes. Anyhow, so then, now that I know that this is actually a drill, it's a joint drill, and our local police departments, remember when we said they're giving you the equipment, they own you. And then we talked about Ferguson and how every police-involved shooting now has to go before this board at the Department of Justice. So we know that our police departments have been socialized now, nationalized. And this is even further nationalizing them. We're going to give you the equipment, but you're going to use it our way. And you're going to learn how to use it our way. And then when the time comes to give the order, you're one of us. So now the local police departments would never fight against the military. They just got incorporated into it. And the military is not going to go after the sheriffs who aren't going to stick up for the people because they're all on the same team now. Obama has gotten rid of all of our majors and lieutenants and colonels, anybody who had a little bit of patriotism, and replaced them with all these new people. And the new people don't necessarily even have to be American citizens. You know, the DREAM Act and all of that, they're bypassing the citizenship requirement for our military.
Illegal aliens.
So now our military has loyalties to other countries.
Yeah. Well, that's what you do.
And
and they're not even training the military like they used to, because they know that they're someday going to leave the military and go home. They don't want, so they just train bare bones, a little as less as they can to get you to get along in there.
Scott, I'm really down to earth, and I'm really, feet planted on the ground type person, and I am very skeptical of conspiracy theories. Well, this is no longer a theory, my friends. The documents are in those chat rooms right now. Our colleagues put them in there. Those documents came from the government themselves. They are not lying. This is not a conspiracy. This is actually a fact. Also, I sent those documents up the pipeline, too. All right, so now people are saying that there's Wal-Mart's closing. We know of 5, absolutely, that are already closed. They had no notice, gave the employees no notice, just said, this store is closing at 5 p.m. today. I have a little story here. Bear with me on this. This is from the I-Team. It says, Wal-Mart stores that were suddenly closed for plumbing issues haven't sought permits. That's important to know. They told you that they had plumbing issues and things were backing up. In this article, I'm not going to read all of it. I'm only going to read a couple of points that I highlighted. However, the employees are all standing around. The manager even said that, she's been there for 16 years. She never had seen any plumbing problems. Another manager said that she's worked inside the store since 2012. She used the restroom daily and has never seen a plumber working in the store or witnessed a plumbing problem. No plumbers or contractors could be seen at the Brandon Wal-Mart. Now, Brandon is in Florida. Besides Brandon, the affected locations were in Pico River, California, Livingston, Texas, Midland, Texas, and Tulsa, Oklahoma. Each one of the stores of those 5 are located on a railroad route. The one in Brandon is located on the Tropicana rail line. All right, so now all the stores were built between 1994 and 2004. Well, that document from 2001, that means this was planned before that. All right, so now the reason that I brought up Walmart is because these people were not even notified. And it says, this guy here says, his name is Enrique, he said, my building official walked out there and didn't see any work being done. He said his office was unaware of any prior plumbing issues, but reached out to Wal-Mart offering help with granting permits for work. So this guy was saying, we got to get the store back up in order. It's bringing all kinds of revenue in taxes and, people into the town and stuff would like to get it working. They had got no response when they were offered even to help with the permitting process. So there is no plumbing going on. So I looked further, and I know a little bit about Wal-Mart. As a matter of fact, I have their history in front of me, but I know it because of, just going through the motions here. But in the 60s, Sam Walton built his first store. In 62, he opened the first Wal-Mart in Rogers, Arkansas. They owned 24 stores in 67. In the 70s, they went national. 1970s is when they started trading on the public trading market. So they became a trading in the 70s, and the shares sold at $16.50 per share originally, and that was in 1970. That's when things started to go bad. When old man Walton died, he had left his business to his family. He had 2 sons and a daughter. The 2 sons, took it to the toilet. But when the daughter got out of school, she bought the brothers out, or she bought most controlling the shares of theirs. And she brought the business back up. But she was educated, liberal, and she decided to, bring it on the public market, and that was her biggest mistake. Once it went on the public market, then they had all the government coming in. So as she expanded, her first store, International, was in Mexico. She had to get permits from the United States to do business out of the country. Once they got the Mexico permit, it just took off from there. They went to China and Japan and India, and she had all kinds of, countries involved. So, of course, the government wanted that. And these stores that I told you about, like I said, they were built in 2004. Well, that document came out in 2001. So these stores must need to be upgraded. The new stores aren't closing. So whatever the upgrades that they're putting in those 5 stores have to be up to par to the other stores. There's all kinds of government involvement with Wal-Mart now because of trades. And then, of course, we know Soros and his minions, right when Obama became president, they started protesting and eventually got the unions into Wal-Mart, and that even put Wal-Mart further down the tubes. Now, people are thinking that these stores are going to be used as some sort of a detention facility or a command center. I'm thinking that might be a possibility. If you look at the design of a Walmart store, there isn't one window. There are, the entranceways that are glass, but you still have to go through a foyer before you actually enter the store. Those places are fortresses. And located on a rail line, who knows if they could be holding centers. 200,000 square feet is the general square area of a Walmart store. That's a lot of square footage.
I worked for Walmart, and I used to give speeches to the employees about how if somebody comes up and talks to you about joining a union, this is what you tell them. We're a family. We don't need a union. Basically, these people are so cheap. You had to keep track of your hours every week because every time you got your paycheck, you'd notice that they accidentally forgot to give you credit for a few hours of work. Mm-hmm. And this is how cheap they are. And in order for them to close down this many superstores, number one, the government has got to be reimbursing them for the losses, which is huge, because they're paying some of their employees even severance pay, which is unheard of with Walmart. And they could be used as anything. They could be used to resupply FEMA camps. They could be used as command centers, morgues, hospitals. They got everything from food to automotive. So practically every need you could possibly want. They're like a small city inside of a building.
Sure they are. Plus, they're CEOs, all right? In 2006, they had this guy named Mike Duke. He became the CEO. The original one was David Glass, and that was in '88. David Glass is an activist. He's a leftist. He's in big with all the Wall Street people. He left there, and a guy named Mike Duke took over. Mike Duke, same thing, activist, part of Open Society. Then the new guy, 2014, Doug McMillan, he's a full-blown union boss. He's the CEO of Wal-Mart now. No wonder the Wal-Mart family wanted out. And they got out.
Right.
Last Friday, the Walton heir of Wal-Mart stores, whose founder was Sam Walton, announced that the family business, Walton Enterprises, LLC, would distribute about 6% of its holdings to a newly created Wal-Mart holding trust, and the other 50% is selling off. So they only want 6%, just a little bit for the moneymaker. They want out. Why would a family who founded that store want out? Especially on top, when now they have a $70 billion a year industry.
Yeah, well, you know what? After you got a few $1 billion, really, where is the passion to even keep it going? I mean, you have enough money you couldn't spend in 12 lifetimes. What's the point? You know, unless you're just a greedy, demonic ghoul like Feinstein, or what's the point?
Yeah, well, in '87. Well, under this guy, Dave Glass, no, what's his name here? Sorry, the first guy, Duke. After he was CEO, they replaced cash registers. They installed the largest private satellite communication system. They went completely cashless in some stores. They are now they got a Medal of Freedom. And they said that their mission was to save people money so that they can live better. And then they used the word sustainability. As soon as you hear that word sustainability, there it is, 21. Agenda 21.
But don't forget, Homeland Security partnered up with them a few years ago. Remember? It was Orwell in 1984. You're going to see Janet Napolitano on Wal-Mart, Wally World TV saying, if you see someone who doesn't want to go along with the Obama regime's takedown of America, say something.
Right.
How creepy is that?
It's very creepy.
You're sitting there, you're picking up toilet paper and a few items, and you got to see, Rocky on TV there telling you to rat out your neighbors for being patriots.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Just sick. Unbelievable. It's a nightmare you can't wake up from.
I know that. And like I said, like he said too, Janet Napolitano, she partnered with Wal-Mart because they have the greatest surveillance, they have satellites, they have all kinds of stuff. If you're spotted with facial recognition in a Wal-Mart, it'll go straight to the FBI.
Do you know, I mean, with everything that Al Sharpton and his traveling pimp circus does to whip up white hatred and racism, he had a perfect shot to do something that was, an actual event, an actual story. It wasn't some made-up crap like Mike Brown. All right, some black guy was at a Walmart, and he went to the toy section or whatever, and he bought a BB gun. He's going to buy a BB rifle for his son. Well, some liberal saw him holding a gun, a black man with a BB gun. So she called the police, of course. And they came and shot him, killed him in right in the aisle there.
Yeah, holding an item off the shelf in Walmart. Holding a BB gun
that he didn't even buy yet. It's still in the package.
Yep.
Now, right there.
Well, Al Sharpton's knowledgeable.
See, but that would have been something.
Al Sharpton knows all about this.
That would have been knows about both this. Black and white people would have gotten behind, though. You see, they would have been on the same page. They would have said, this is outrageous. And you wouldn't have been able to make it a black-white issue because they'd be agreeing on it. It'd be a citizen versus police issue. Couldn't have that.
Yeah, well, Scott, his job is to keep black people in line. He works for the government. He is not a black activist. You notice everybody was falling out of love with Obama. So he had to stir up crap to bring the blacks back into the Democratic fold. He had to rally them up and bring them back because he was losing control of them. He was so busy worried about the immigrants and the Muslims and, his own vacations and stuff that he lost the confidence of black people. Black people were like, yeah, he used us. So now they have to rally the blacks back up. Who better to do it than Al Sharpton? Al Sharpton's already got an in with Wal-Mart. He's been shaking them down for years.
That'd have been like if George Bush would have palled up with David Duke.
Yeah.
I mean, even Charles Krauthammer couldn't believe it when Obama, hooked his star to Al Sharpton.
I got to tell you something. Black people are screwed under this plan. What do you think? They need a whole bunch of people that will stick together? Unless they're working for the government, they're not going to fare very well. First of all, they don't like poor people and minorities who are dependent on the state. They make you dependent on the state, first of all. They make it so you can't get off the dependency. All your family, your children, are not getting off that dependency. They demand absolute loyalty.
Yeah, it's just
and
another
if you
form
are not
of slavery.
Loyal, yes.
Debt slavery and poverty slavery.
Sure it is. Sure it is. You're never going to get rich on government programs, but they're going to keep you on these government programs to control you. They'll make sure that you're not hungry, and they'll make sure that you at least have minimal living conditions because, you're already that poor. You don't want to do anything to upset the apple cart to lose even more. They're terrified to lose these benefits. Of course they are. That's how they survive. That's not just blacks. That's poor people in general. Those are the people that are working.
Yeah, and
the ones that have
where...
jobs and the ones that are productive, they're not going to be screwed first because somebody's still got to, how you say, screw them all but six. Well, you know why you can't screw all those six is someone's got to be the pallbearers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what's going on here. And this Jade Helm thing, this is not the big one, but this is the lead-in to the big one. They are practicing for the big one.
Well, and it's very strange that it's strange that it's all southern states, though, right now. And the fact that they even allowed this information to be released has to tell me that they want us to know.
But see, it's not the southern states.
Make us think
we
discovered this conspiracy plot and whatnot. Well, if you take the country and split it in half,
states.
If you take the country and split it in half from east to west, it's the bottom half of the state. This isn't happening in Montana and New York. I mean, this is happening in Florida, California, and Texas.
You're wrong. Jade Helm 2015 is happening in the Sun Belt. But you remember when they had the stuff going on up in Montana, that little town. And you remember the Boston bombing. And
but that was
L.A.
They weren't shutting down
LA
Wal-Mart.
Drills.
The
drills that I have... Well, the drills that I've been able to find... The drills that I've been able to find are all along the coast. The East Coast, the West Coast, the southern Gulf Coast, and the northern Great Lakes regions. They were in Montana. They even have a Jade Helm program called Northern Exposure up there in the Great Lakes northern regions. Now, what they're doing is they are securing the perimeter. They're going to pull you all into the middle.
Yeah, I was referring to the list of Wal-Marts closing.
Oh, the Wal-Mart stores, yes.
Yeah, they're not closing
right
in
that.
Nebraska or Montana or anywhere. It's all in the lower part of the states.
Well, it loops up around Colorado and Utah, but it's Florida, Mississippi, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California, Nevada, and Utah.
And everything they do is for the takedown of America. The Jade Helm thing is like Boston bombing, martial law, emergency police action drill.
Yes.
And if you see a drill happening, you better just assume that it's the real thing. Don't assume it's a drill. Assume it's the real thing and get the hell away from there.
Right.
That's what,
But, people are cooperating.
This is what they do.
People are cooperating because, it's our military. It's our local police departments. The population is cooperating because they're saying You know, it's training. Of course you want to train the soldiers, and of course you want to train the cops. But I don't think people understand what they're training for. They don't have to leave a military base to train for urban events. And if they do, it wouldn't be as widespread as this. They are building the plan. They are data collecting. They are watching and monitoring every single step of this drill to find the successes, find the weak points, places where they could use improvement, you know, places where it worked, how the people reacted. They're building this. But it's been going on since 1961. The plan's been going on, and then first they had to send all this equipment in, and they couldn't just equip everybody all at once because people would get suspicious. So an MRAP here, and some armory there, and some bullets over here, and all the things that they have been ordering. Remember we talked about all the bullets and the armor-piercing artillery that they had been ordering, and the night vision, and all of this stuff. Well, now you know where it's going. They didn't need all that, but they got it. And we said, you know, why do they need it? Because they're going to give it to the local police departments. Our cops are being... Go ahead.
Well, and just wait. You know, when they find out that some of these cops aren't going to go along, they're just going to remove the cops, and they'll stick in a bunch of illegal aliens or Muslims or somebody in there in the police departments, and they'll be all set up already. They won't have to arm them. Not to mention 4 billion bullets they've purchased. You know, that's enough for a war to last.
You remember when Nappy was, you remember when Nappy was collecting all this stuff, and we were wondering where it was going. Well, now quit wondering. They're supplying the local police departments. They are combining. They're combining the cops with the military.
They do it to supply the cops and the military, you know, in the country, and to jack up the price and to take away the supply away from citizens.
Yeah. Well, if the citizens are smart, whatever type of bullets in the armory they're ordering, you might want to have one of those that is compatible, because when they drop it and run, at least you'll be able to use it.
Yeah, so that's something they're not considering. All that stuff that they're supplying the police departments with, you know, there are militias out there that are going to really enjoy having a nice MRAP.
Yeah,
so they better be able to defend all the stuff they have, because once they drop the hammer on the country, it's on, and who knows what's going to happen then? Because,
you know, I have to admit, I thought this was crazy talk.
Yeah, well,
and it's not. I'm doing the research.
And when they keep doing these drills, and people just get used to these drills, one of the times it's not going to be a drill, and everybody's going to think, "Oh, this is just a drill." No, you know, you have to assume that it's a real deal every time it happens.
Yeah, well, right now you're right. They're desensitizing us, and they're getting us acclimated to this. Even the TSA was part of it when they went from just screening and walking through the metal detectors to actually putting their hands on you. That was part of this.
Oh, did you hear the latest with the TSA? Some guy working there was flagging his gay friend, or whenever you know, some dude was coming through there that was good looking or something. Just so he could go over and grope his junk. I mean, that was just
true.
on.
I remember that.
Can you believe that?
Yeah,
and
this is
why I don't fly anymore.
Including me, with my hands in the air while I got groped.
I am not going to be treated like a prisoner just to exercise my right to travel. But that's that's one way they can. That's one way they can cut down on people leaving the country. That's one way to do it. Make the experience so miserable that you don't even want to go through it.
Yeah. Well,
here's your choice. Would you like to be molested by a 50 IQ TSA ape, or would you like to be radiated through this machine that pretty much pulls your DNA strands apart?
Yeah, well, they did both to me. I had to go through the radiation, and then when I got out of there, I got thoroughly felt up. And it was over. I had bottles of shampoo and conditioner in my carry-on. Hey,
you
that's
must
right.
have it going on, Joanne.
You know it, honey. Anyhow, my suitcase, I had shampoos of conditioner and deodorant and all of that in my thing, and that's why I was flagged. Know what else I had in my suitcase? I had a diagnostic machine for cars. It was a little box, and it has dials and meters on it and lots of tubes and wires, and that was also in my suitcase. They pulled it out, asked me what it was. I told them what it was. They put it back in the suitcase. Then they said I had more contraband in there, and they showed it to me on the screen. I said, "Oh, that's a can of secret deodorant." And I went to reach for it to pull it out to show him, and he said, "Don't touch the suitcase until I tell you." I was like, "Whoa!" I jumped back. I put my hands up, down, and I was like, "Okay, I won't touch it," but it's deodorant, which it was. And there was a large bottle of Pantene shampoo and conditioner in there. So they confiscated that too, and then they put my box with all the wires, tubes, and meters and stuff in it, put it back in the suitcase, and sent me on my way.
God.
Anyhow, back to Jade Helm. All right, these actor jobs. Constitution Rising says, for those Americans suspicious of the true nature of the upcoming Jade Helm exercises in the Southwest United States, a recent job posting by EKS Group should add more fuel to the fire. EKS is an employment agency that doesn't provide your typical warehouse or casual labor. They describe their organization on their website as having hundreds of years of experience in areas surrounding intelligence operations, law enforcement, counterintelligence, human intelligence, information operations, counterterrorism, force protection, security matters, international diplomacy, and foreign area knowledge. They add EKS is a recognized industry leader for sophisticated physical and technical surveillance operations and training support. Our teams perform over 75,000 hours of surveillance work annually with teams across the United States. Anyhow, one more ominous recent advertisement comes out of their Phoenix office and is currently posted on their website. It calls for surveillance role players, perhaps intending to create the impression that these are merely actor positions. They aren't. Whatever their positions involve, no requirement for previous acting experience is mentioned, and the preparatory training is quite different. The physical requirements for the ability to walk up to 18 miles a day, sit up for 12 hours at a time, aren't your typical acting job. Neither are the need for DOD clearance or the ability to use electronic devices. So that's the employment for this operation from this company.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
You're a guinea pig, basically. They want to see how different weapons, how people react to different weapons and scenarios, what's most effective during, in warm climates and cold climates. And it's all to gather information so they can use it against the American public down the road.
Mm-hmm. You're right. All right, now, let's talk about...
By the way, is any of the candidates talking about any of this? And if
No.
they aren't, guess what? They're part of it. Okay? So don't fall in love with any candidate.
Every one of them know about it. Every one of them know about it.
So none of these people are your messiah. No one's gonna save the country and the world. So I don't care.
This is no
how
secret.
nice
It's all over the web. All over the place. It's no secret. Every one of your politicians in D.C. know about it. Not only do they know about it, but they're moving out of D.C. They're moving out of New York, too. Did you see that the New York Fed is moving to Chicago? What are they expecting, a tsunami? Why are they moving further inland, off the coast?
Yeah. Well, I could tell you a few things of what I think, but that would be a conspiracy theory.
Well, they said that now... that they're using this BS that now the Chicago Fed is able to handle the operations for both themselves and for the New York Fed. Plus, they said that for security reasons, and they cite Hurricane Sandy as a reason. Well, Chicago gets tornadoes, right? So a hurricane, a tornado, a hailstorm, any of that stuff, a blizzard, could all damage operations. So that's a bunch of baloney. So now you got all these drills going on. Plus, you already know about Boston. Now they brought up Hurricane Sandy. In these things, they brought up the Colorado shootings, and they brought up the military members, returning members, and patriots and militia. So that involves the whole perimeter of the country, and they're moving inland towards the center of the country. So then, when you're looking at that Federal Reserve moving, and you put it with Jamie Dimon announcing the other day that there will be another crisis. He didn't say there may be. He said there will be another crisis, and it will be felt by the financial markets. So he's saying here that another economic crisis like the Great Recession is inevitable, according to J.P. Morgan Chase's CEO, Jamie Dimon, who heads the bank that recently imposed capital controls and limits on cash withdrawals. Actually, InfoWars put this one out. Dimon's admission is, but I read it at the New York Times, and I read it at the Wall Street Journal, too, but this one was the best roundup. Dimon's admission is particularly concerning, considering that J.P. Morgan Chase, the largest bank in the U.S., has already enacted a $50,000 monthly limit on cash withdrawals and has also banned American customers from sending money outside the U.S. So now, you can, if you have money in your bank, they're only going to let you take out $50,000 a month of your own money, or so you think. No, it isn't your own money, because Jamie Dimon, if you remember, he was involved in robbing the farmers with Corzine, with MF Global, and the farmers took them to court, and the bank and the judge said, no, any money that's in the bank belongs to the bank. You willingly gave it up. It's a contract, so that's a civil case, not a criminal case. And you got to take it up with the civil courts. And then the civil courts threw it out. DOJ didn't even prosecute it.
Well, of course not. It's a revolving door policy.
So now you're lucky if they let you take $50,000 of your own money out of the bank. They're doing you a favor. You put it in the bank, it's theirs.
You take $2,000 out, and you've got to jump through hoops and tell them what you want it for.
My uncle took $3,500 out of his bank account to buy a car on Craigslist. The guy wanted cash. So he took the money out. It turns out my uncle didn't buy the car. So he went to put the money back in the bank. They wouldn't take it.
Nice.
Wanted to know where he got it. He said, I was here an hour ago. I took it out. They weren't having it. You know, we got these new laws, and we have to, you know, put a report in if anybody's moving large sums of money. He said, large sum of money, it's $3,500.
Yeah, 20 years ago, they would have kissed your butt and gave you a toaster to put that money in their bank.
Right.
You know, now you're on a terror watch list.
Yeah, because you took money out.
Your own money.
So anyhow, now that Dimon is telling us there's going to be another crisis, now that Jade Helm is operational and has been in the works since 1961, all of the markers are in place, and the more they do as far as training, the more ingrained it gets. Once this training is over, they're not backing up their equipment and leaving. They're going to have continuing training. This is just a large-scale operation because they've been doing it on small scales now for quite a while. And
you want to know what they're going to do?
Small increments putting this in place right under your noses. They've been hiding in plain sight the whole time.
My opinion, you want to know what I think they're going to do?
Sure.
They're going to wait for to create a false flag or wait for one to happen. And when everybody is freaking out and needing of help, and you think the cavalry is coming over the hill, the cavalry's coming over the hill, all right, but it isn't going to be to help you. It's going to be to take your guns and take you down.
Right.
Order out of chaos. You know.
And you know, Eric Holder said that his biggest regret was not being able to disarm us during his time.
Yeah, and they're not just going to let that go. Oh, we couldn't get them to hand over their guns or outlaw it. They're going to find another way. It's just like the CISPA and CESPA. You know, oh, we couldn't take over the Internet? We couldn't regulate it into the ground? Okay, well, they voted it down twice. What'd they do? Just gave it to the FCC to do it. Same thing.
Right.
They get their way one way or another if it's, if it's through the regular channels of passing draconian laws, and if not, they'll do it at the end of the barrel of a gun. This
yeah,
is
well,
what
we were worried.
tyrannical governments do.
We were worried if we gave up the guns, the only ones that would have guns would be the criminals. The criminals are the least of your problems. Actually, gun crime is on the decrease. But the criminals with illegal guns are the least of your problems. If you give up your guns, not only are you at the mercy of criminals who didn't, but you are at the mercy of a program that has been enacted since 1961 with Eisenhower.
Yeah. And he tried warning us about the military-industrial complex.
Mm-hmm.
That last speech he gave on his way out the door, and JFK tried warning us, but nothing
They
happened.
killed him 9 days later.
Well, I
9
know,
days after he gave that speech, he was dead.
Right. He was doing so many things during that time. Who knows? I mean, people were waiting in line to whack him.
All right, so now that you know that it started with Eisenhower, and you think of how many elections that we've had since then, and then think of how many of our Congress people have been there for decades. Look no further. They are the perps. You know,
yeah, and
the
they're
new
all
guys, they're just
blackmailed
coming
to
in.
do whatever.
Well,
You know,
the old
even if they wanted to do the right thing, they can't. Because everybody has someone they love more than themselves, and everybody has somebody out there that could be threatened. So, you know, and who knows? As much as I like to spew hatred toward these traitorous bastards, I got to say, if I was in the same spot and someone was threatening my kid or something, or my wife, I don't know, I might cave too. But I wouldn't want to even work for these you know, ghouls in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, they walk up to someone like John Boner, who has no spine anyway, and they say, here's your choices. You want gold or lead? And he takes the gold.
Right. Now, another thing that's also connected is, we talked about him getting rid of the majors and the generals and stuff. Another thing that they're getting rid of is Christians in our military. Christians are good people. Christians are not going to shoot American patriots. Well, you have 2 chaplains now that have been booted, and they're being represented by this law firm here over at Liberty Institute. And they came up with a story. They had an interview with the Washington Times. The article says, soon there may be only atheists in the foxholes. Christians are leaving the U.S. military or are discouraged from joining in the first place because of a hostile work environment that doesn't let them express their beliefs openly, religious freedom advocates say. Michael Berry, a senior counsel at the Liberty Institute, a Texas-based legal organization dedicated to defending religious liberty in America, said recent high-profile cases of military chaplains facing punishment for private counseling sessions that reflected the teachings of their religion could cause devout Americans who are qualified for military service to think twice about joining the military. You know, it goes on about, in December, a chaplain for a Ranger Training Battalion received an administration letter of concern after a soldier complained that the guy advocated Christianity and used the Bible during a mandatory unit suicide prevention training center. The guy's a chaplain. Of course he's got a Bible. One soldier complains, and the chaplain gets booted.
They're moving us to a New World Army, and that means, you can be a Muslim, but that's about it. That's your choice. You can be a Muslim or you can be an atheist.
Yeah, well, Christians are harder
Army.
to convince. Christians are harder to convince to round up and
kill innocent civilians.
Disarm their right.
That's where Blackwater comes in. They'll kill anybody.
All right, so rounding it up, here's where we are and what we've been able to find about Jade Helm. Yes, it's real. Start there. Yes, it's been going on for a long time, and all the politicians know about it. They know it's not a drill. They know that it's a planning operation. They know that they've already been having drills. They've been having these drills all over the country for quite some time. Even remember in Fort Lauderdale a couple of weeks ago when they were reporting the helicopters flying around at night around the seaport. So everybody knows about it. The media is keeping it quiet. That's your first clue that something very big is going on, because they would tell you. And if they're not telling you, you got to watch for what's not being said.
They'd rather talk about a pizza joint not wanting to cater, to gay weddings, because that's really important.
That's
what I mean with all these stories they follow, which it's going to mean nothing to us 5 years from now. But
right. My advice: find a different baker. Knock it off.
I haven't seen a good segment. I don't watch TV anymore anyway, but I haven't heard about them doing a good segment on the NDAA. And you would think, when you do away with due process of law in this country, that would be a big deal.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that is also a piece of this. None of this could happen without that.
Right. They could just take you, disappear you off the street, just like Russians did in the 70s, take you to the gulag. And, you even had Lindsey Graham out there. Well, when one of these people asks for a lawyer, you tell them, you don't get a lawyer. Remember that speech?
Right.
I tell you, if anybody ever wanted to make sure he never runs for anything, just keep replaying that speech over and over on a commercial.
Well, look at the Al-Awlaki kid. They used his father as the first American to be killed under this without due process. And then they killed his kid. Everybody said, oh, the boogeyman, kill him, kill him, kill him. Everything's all right. Well, they cannot make a law for just Al-Awlaki. If they make a law, it has to cover all Americans, not just one. You can't make a law for just one.
When they asked Jay Carney about it, you know what he said? Well, I guess he was born into the wrong father. That's
something the kid had control of.
Right.
The kid was killed when they could have picked him up. They had him under surveillance. They even talked to him and had communications with him while he was walking around town. They could have picked him up then. But instead, they killed him, and not just killed him, but killed a yard full of boys that he was playing soccer with, too.
Yeah.
They didn't tell you that part. They didn't just kill Al-Awlaki, but he was an American. And they could have picked him up, and they denied him his constitutional rights. And that NDAA, the way that Holder and Obama interpreted it, Holder came out and said that an executive review does constitute due process. Oh, it does? No judge, no jury, no evidence, no defense strategy, nothing.
Yeah, guilty by DNA.
Obama and Holder talked about it, and then they consider that due process. Kill him.
Yeah. Guilty by DNA.
That kid had not committed a crime against the United States.
I saw an article yesterday that it just came out, and if you don't know that you've lost your country and this is no longer America, when they have to pass a bill for you to have a right to fly an American flag in America, it's over, folks.
Mm-hmm.
It's over.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I heard about that. I heard about that. They don't need a bill for that. We have a bill. It's called the Declaration of Independence. It's called free speech. When you fly that flag, you are saying you are an American and you support the United States of America. That is speech, ladies and gentlemen. Don't fall for that. You don't need a new law for that. They got another new law on this Iran thing. We're coming up with that in a minute, too. But you don't need that law either. Guys,
now you think
we got to pay
they'd
attention
be making
here.
laws? You think they'd be making laws against burning a flag? No, they have to make laws so you can fly one. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
No, but
everything
if you burn
is
a flag,
backward.
If you burn a flag and someone's got a problem with it, what do they say? It's free speech.
Yeah, right. But if you fly
but
one,
then they turn it around and say it's not free speech if you're flying it proud.
You're a racist.
You can't have it both ways. It is or it isn't free speech.
You can, however, fly a Mexican flag.
Yeah.
Oh, not even on Cinco de Mayo.
Well, with this Jade Helm, this is not the big one, but it is the lead into it. And the enemy is you. Second Amendment supporters, returning veterans, patriots.
People are going to have to draw a line and say, what will they do before I decide I'm not complying and I'm willing to lay my life down for it? Well,
and all these young soldiers.
Hopefully this one is it.
All these young soldiers.
Your guns and kicking your door in and killing you if you don't give up your Second Amendment right.
Yeah, well, these young soldiers and these young cops and everything, they are being pulled in. If you are the parent of a young soldier or a young police officer, please tell them about patriotism. Tell them about the Constitution. Tell them about the Bill of Rights. Make sure they understand it fully. Make sure they understand their own rights. Make sure they understand what that Constitution says about following orders. Make sure you teach them about the Geneva Convention. I was just following orders, did not float there.
Right. That was when there was some hint of accountability and consequences to actions. Talking about the Nuremberg trials?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, any questions about Jade Helm? Anything more we want to add to this?
No, I can't think of it.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll do more as we find it, and we'll definitely put it on the shows. But right now, stay alert, stay aware, learn as much as you can about Jade Helm. All the documents that our colleague just put in both those chats, compile them somewhere, put them in an email to yourself or somebody, whatever, because you might need to refer to those later. And there will be more information coming as we go along. All right, on that note, let's take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to finish out our newscast because there's more news going on. We'll be right back. And hello again, Freedomizers. This is Joanne Moretti from Zone 13, and we're back live. Thank you for sticking around. We appreciate it. All right, Scott, you ready? Let's do a little bit more news. All right. As we were coming on the air today, Al-Qaeda had captured an airport in South Yemen. Now, I have a problem with that. Obama said that Yemen was a success story. Yemen has been a success story for Al-Qaeda, so if that's what he calls a success, then yes. There was Americans stuck there, and he told them, well, call India for help. They didn't even have a plan to get people out of a war zone that he had put in there. They were contractors, embassy personnel, and some USAID workers. Well, he just abandoned them and left them there. Finally, Russia and India helped get them out. There's still some stranded over there, but they're in hiding. And the Al-Qaeda just took over the airport. All right, now, let's talk about this Iran deal. They just come up. This is the one that I was telling you about. We didn't need another plan, another bill. Congress put this bill up, and Obama is expected to sign it because the Democrats and the Republicans agreed on it. But they want to have some say. They want to see this deal that Iran and the United States are working on. They want to see all the details of it. They wanted to see it for 60 days before Obama could sign off on it. Now it's down to 30 days. Okay, let me bring you up to speed here because I want to first tell you the definition of the word treaty. Now, a treaty has to be ratified by Congress, 2/3 of Congress, before it can even go into effect. A treaty is a noun. The plural of treaty is treaties. It's a formally concluded and ratified agreement between two countries. Okay? That's an agreement. Now, synonyms for that are agreement, settlement, pact, deal, entente, concordat, an accord, a protocol, convention, contract, covenant, bargain, pledge, and a whole bunch of other things. The word deal is listed as a synonym for treaty. So now, you can do word gymnastics, but it's still a treaty, a formally concluded agreement between two countries. That's what a treaty is. And then it has to be ratified. All right, so the Iran bill is unlikely to scuttle the deal. The White House believes it got what it needed from Congress. This is from Politico. Democrats and Republicans in Congress are both claiming victory by cornering Obama to sign an Iran bill he didn't want. But the White House said that it misses the point. The final legislation was narrowed enough that it's not going to stand in their way or do anything to upset the ongoing negotiations in Switzerland, so it's useless. And interviews with Democratic lawmakers suggest there's slim chance that they'd be willing to go any further to scuttle a nuclear deal, so they're just throwing the towel there. While Capitol Hill now has an avenue to block Obama from lifting legislative sanctions on Iran, a precondition of any agreement to curb its ability to build a bomb, now that they feel they've asserted constitutional prerogatives, Democratic senators are moving away from a confrontation. So he just quieted everybody down. They changed the wording. So now Congress has nothing to do with this deal. They get to look at it, but they don't get to interfere. And they're calling that a win? That's not a win. They just gave up your Constitution. The Constitution says any agreement between the United States and any other foreign nation is a treaty, and it has to be ratified by 2/3 of the Congress. I don't care if you call it a deal. I don't care if you call it a swindle, which it is. It's still a treaty.
Do you know what the Constitution is for?
They just willingly ceded the Constitution to him.
The Constitution is a myth that they use just to make people like us feel good, and but nobody abides by it anyway. Well, you know, it's like Hillary's emails. When is the last time anyone's got in trouble for violating their oath of office or stomping on the Constitution? Never, because I can't think of any in my lifetime. So if nobody follows it and nobody gets in trouble for not following it, it's just something that makes us feel good.
Right. You're right. You're right. They just willingly ceded it. They don't have the authority to change the Constitution. They don't have the authority to give up their equal branch to one. They don't have the authority to surrender. If Congress is surrendering to the White House, what are they still doing there? Tell them pack up their offices and screw, because they're no longer needed. All we need is the dictator-in-chief, right?
Yep.
They get to look at this agreement, but don't have any say in it. It's not an agreement, ladies and gentlemen. Agreement.
You see,
agreement is
they
just
can say,
a synonym.
Well, you can't blame us. We couldn't even see it. You know, so it gives them plausible deniability. Like,
well,
we
if
would
they
have
can't
done something
see it,
to stop
it's not
it,
an agreement.
We couldn't. They could, you know, they could right now make it so this guy's lame duckness couldn't flush the toilet without their permission, but they don't,
right?
Because it's all just BS.
A lame duck and a minority in the Senate and the House.
Right. That's what I'm saying. If they wanted to, he couldn't flush the toilet without their permission.
You're right.
And this shows you. Remember when Nancy Pelosi said, like 6 years ago, "Oh, these elections shouldn't have this many consequences." What consequences? There are no consequences. You get a vote communist or communist light / socialism.
Yes.
You know, there's no patriots anymore. There's nobody doing anything right. I mean, you get a lot of rhetoric, but when you got 3 people in Congress that actually cares and doesn't like what they see, they're such a minority. They're not even heard. They're like Ron Paul. He spent 30 years there in Congress and got nothing accomplished.
You know, we used to have some good patriots up there as federal employees, and you know, even though the politicians were screwing things up, the employees were holding it together. But they've been so browbeaten and so taken over and so threatened that they're just going along with whatever the current administration says, and they'll just adapt to the next one, just like they adapted to the one before. So I'm not really holding out a lot of help for hope for federal employees either. Speaking of federal employees, the IRS. What is the IRS's core function?
To shake down and extort money from the American people unconstitutionally. Call it voluntarily, and if you don't do it, you can voluntarily go to prison.
Right.
And even if you don't like that, they have their own hit squads and SWAT teams to come in and kill you.
Right. Well, that's true. But the core, in my opinion, the core thing was that they were supposed to deal with the collection of taxes, not just income, but they were collection of taxes. Well, we give them billions and billions of dollars to run their operation. We also have this thing called Obamacare, and we give them billions and billions of dollars to run their operation. Well, they blew all their money over at the Obamacare, so they decided to take people and money from the IRS, seeing that they were included and they're part of who has to shake you down for the Obamacare money. So now people who were trying to file their taxes or had questions could not reach the IRS. There was a hearing the other day on this. Koskinen, the boss, was asked, well, how come no one's answering the phones over there? He said, we don't have the help. So Kelly Ayotte says, well, what'd you do with the money that we gave you to pay the help? They said we had to send it over to Obamacare. Well, how much did you send over to Obamacare? Most of it. So nobody's answering the phones at the IRS. 60% of the calls that go to the IRS are not even answered. I have a friend who tried for 4 days to try to get a call through to the IRS. Phone rang and rang and rang. No one ever picked it up. They are so far behind. And then, let's see here, Ayotte says, let me point out that from your testimony, the one thing that people need to understand is that you had to take money from the taxpayer services line to fund implementation of the Affordable Care Act. Essentially, is that what happened here, Ayotte said? Yes, Koskinen admitted. She says, we funded you the same on the taxpayer services, and you took the money to implement Obamacare, Kelly continued. The money you gave us for taxpayer services was spent on taxpayer services. We actually put $50 million of user fees into it, Koskinen answered. It's the $100 million we had to put into the statutory mandate, and we have to do statutory mandate. So they took $100 million. That's a lot of money, guys. So then, well, yeah, in the 15 budget, the GAO found the IRS used $12.1 million that was appropriated for taxpayer services to implement the Affordable Care Act. And then Koskinen said again, yeah, we have no choice. If you pass an act that Congress passed, as I've said, ironically these days, after our budget was cut by $350 million, the Congress passed the ABLE Act with no additional funding and said you got till June 1st to add the Professional Employers Organization Act. And we'll do that because you told us to do it, he continued. But the only way we do that is if we have to find the money somewhere, we take it where we have discretion. Right. So we're taking it from our core function to do this, Ayotte said. The ABLE Act, we better find out what that is, too, Professional Employers Organization Act. So when they say Professional Employers Organization Act, that means they're shaking down employers. So more jobs are going to be lost. We better figure out what that one is, too.
You know, and doesn't that prove to you what I said a minute ago? I mean, think about that. The Constitution is completely against creating a central bank where they steal your income, a part of your income, to fund whatever thing that they want, and have a Gestapo extortion unit to come and take your money, and if you don't give it up, they said they take you to federal penitentiary, and that's from 1913. It's 102 years of just blatantly stomping on the Constitution, which is why it's just a myth to make us feel good. Like we're special. We have a Constitution. We don't have anything.
Well, something else about that. You just said 102 years. They had a 100-year agreement, so 2 years ago it had to be re-upped.
Yeah, you didn't see much. You didn't see Fox News doing report after report about that, did you? Oh,
yeah, they're redoing the agreement with the Fed.
They were
we don't even know if there's another agreement.
They were probably covering, Kim Kardashian's perpetually expanding rear end.
Yeah, well, I don't know what they were reporting on, but they certainly weren't reporting on that. All right, we got another one here, a problem. Over at the WhiteHouse.gov site, there was an article put there, Share Your American Story, introducing a task force on New Americans. New Americans would make you think that these New Americans were Americans, right?
No.
New Americans. Sounds like wonderful new immigrants who have sworn allegiance to the United States. They have passed all the requirements. They have done everything that was asked of them, and they actually wanted to be Americans, and they're sworn in, and we are supposed to welcome them. Absolutely, we're supposed to welcome them. However, this is not about welcoming Americans at all. It's about welcoming refugees, illegals, the dreamers, not legal American citizens. Now, from the UCIS director, this was sent Tuesday, April 14th, 2015. This is the subject. Now, I got this anonymously. We weren't supposed to have this. It was a message from the director to the Task Force on New Americans. It says, Dear colleagues, back in November, after Obama announced his executive action on immigration, I began co-chairing the task force on New Americans along with Cecilia Munoz, Director of the White House Domestic Policy Council. Today, after months of assessing existing federal initiatives on immigration integration, interacting with stakeholders, and listening to public recommendations, we released a report titled Strengthening Communities by Welcoming All Residents, a federal strategic action plan on immigrant and refugee integration. The report is available at whitehouse.gov. This report outlines an immigrant integration plan that will advance our nation's global competitiveness and ensure that the people who live in this country can fully participate in their communities. The initial action plan provides specific recommendations on how to build welcoming communities, strengthen existing pathways to naturalization, and promote civic engagement, support skill development and entrepreneurship while protecting new American workers, and expand opportunities for immigrants to learn English. The task force members, who come from 16 federal departments, agencies, and White House offices, will begin implementing the recommendations outlined in the action plan over the coming months. Now, you know that there is a standing restraining order against this, but they're still going to do it. We intend to continue engaging with stakeholders at local, national levels and to further refine and review the plan. I'll keep you updated as we achieve future milestones. Sincerely, Leon Rodriguez, Director, Co-Chair, Task Force on New Americans, the New American Projects at whitehouse.gov. So this is a government agency telling you to your face that you are to welcome illegals and refugees. They are using your money to strengthen communities and build welcoming communities. They are seeding these communities. We just got done with an investigation on how they're seeding the communities. They're putting them all in one spot. And they are not asking them to assimilate. They're asking us to become part of their culture. They're breaking us up into tribal regions. We're the United States of America.
They have to destroy national pride and national sovereignty. That's how they do it. We're global citizens now, haven't you heard?
Yeah, I heard.
How many times have you said that in UN speeches?
There is no benefit to being an
global
American citizen. You have more benefits now as an illegal or a refugee than you do as an American citizen. No one's building you a new community, are they? Nobody's building you a welcome center, are they?
This has been going on forever, too. I remember being in high school and seeing some Vietnamese kid driving around in a Corvette. I'm thinking, how does this guy afford this? Is his dad rich or something? Well, no, his dad owned a business, didn't have to pay taxes for 10 years or something like that. I mean, I'm thinking, if you're an American citizen, you got to pay taxes, and now it's not even worth having a small business. They tax you into poverty. Yeah, well, they're even telling you they're going to support skill development and entrepreneurship while protecting new American workers. Somebody protecting old American workers? Somebody building entrepreneurship and skills for you? This way they can legally be prejudiced against natural-born citizens. They can, discriminate against you, give them special privileges, and if you're an American citizen, you're a second-class citizen. That's what you are now. Yeah, you get to pay the tab for all this welcoming committee. Right. As long as you're working, you can pay the tab for them, and that's as long as you're working. They have these illegal immigrants coming over here, not immigrants. See, they even brainwashed me to say it because immigration is a legal process. Illegal invaders. All right, illegal invaders, and not only are they stealing your jobs, but they're telling Americans, hey, if you want that severance pay, you're going to retrain the person replacing you. They force them to train their replacement. Right. Or they weren't getting the severance pay. Right. It's just blackmail. Unbelievable. But, they will do whatever they want. Yeah. Next, I don't even know what to say. Next week we're going to do some follow-up on all of this. I have one more story, and then we're going to get out of here. The California drought, we've talked about the Delta smelt. Do you know how many Delta smelt there are? 9. Yep. Scott's right. 9 Delta smelt. Not 900, not 90, not 99. 9. Enough to fit in an aquarium at Red Lobster.
You wouldn't even need one that big. They could fit in a fishbowl. They're tiny.
Right.
This
Can you
fish
believe
is not
that?
even as big as your thumb.
And it's just a way. Here we go again. Nestle has their patent or their license or whatever to steal water out of Southern California expired like in 1988 or something. The CEO came out and said American people shouldn't have the right to water. And isn't it funny that they're stealing water from Southern California, turning it around and reselling it to Californians and everybody else?
Not only that, but California,
China is getting lots of it.
California releases trillions of gallons of fresh water into the bay every year. They don't want the water in Southern California. One-third of the produce is grown there.
Well, now they're
the
blaming it on
produce.
marijuana farmers. Yes, it's those dang marijuana farmers. They're sucking it dry. Less than 5% of marijuana farmers are taking any water. So it's such BS. And then they can turn around and blame global warming for it, like Governor Moonbeam is doing.
Yeah, well, global warming and the drought, and then the seas are going to rise. But Al Gore and Obama bought oceanfront property. The seas are not going to rise. They don't want water
even where it
the
is warming,
produce belt.
Even where it is warming, it has nothing to do with man doing it, because all the planets are warming. They driving too many, old vehicles on Mars or something. It's kind of hard to regulate the sun. And you could give every dime he ever made to Al Gore, and he's not going to be able to regulate the sun.
True. Exactly true. And as far as carbon and methane, you could get rid of all the carbon you want. One volcanic eruption will put it all right back there. Plus,
and we're carbon-based units. The whole planet feeds on carbon dioxide and oxygen, but they have figured out how to demonize the actual air you breathe.
Well, not only that, but the whole thing is a scam. And Figueres, the UN climate czar, said so. She said that this is the biggest undertaking the world has ever done, a transformation of wealth and resources to developing countries. The global climate scam is exactly that, a scam. They need to charge you, and they need a reason to charge you so they can take your money and put it elsewhere. That's all this is.
Yeah,
if it wasn't a climate scam, which is easy because, everybody says, oh, yeah, well, I want a nice, clean planet, and I don't want, to damage the environment. Nobody does. Nobody does.
Redistribution of wealth.
Americans are good people. We shut off the lights when we're not using them. We recycle. We don't waste. Normal people do that every single day. We don't need an Earth Day, and we don't need a climate czar at the UN, and we don't need to redistribute our wealth. This is a social experiment, and the only way they can get you to pay for it is if they get you to voluntarily do it. And if you're not going to voluntarily do it, then they're going to mandate it.
You're right. You either
do it one or two
voluntarily, or it's at the barrel of a gun. It's no different than the IRS. You voluntarily pay your taxes. What happens if I don't? Well, you go to prison, but, it's voluntary.
Yeah, you go to prison. But, if you volunteered to pay your taxes, you wouldn't go to prison. So then it's not voluntary, right?
Sure,
and neither is climate change.
Global
it's a
mafia.
racket.
Yeah, global mafia. That's all it is.
All right, we're out of time. We got to say bye to everybody.
Okay, had a good one, Joanne.
Thank you.
Good job with all the research.
Thank you. And you have a good night. Say good night, everybody.
All right, you too.